that's got to be the best day on U.S. men's national team Twitter since we got out of the group stage.
Yeah, I mean, I saw people tweeting that this is the most American they've felt since we killed bin Laden. So, welcome back to Yanks Abroad. Today is a celebration. Gregg Berhalter has finally been fired. We're going to talk all things. Was it a deserving fire? Is Tim Weah an American hero? And then all the possible candidates that we can look forward to potentially leading us to the 2026 World Cup. Just off the cuff, first thoughts when you saw the news.
I mean, I was just so thankful. Like, they've been saying for a week they're going to make an announcement. To me, the fact that it took them a week to make the announcement made me more worried, just because it's like they know there's going to be backlash. Are they preparing for, like, to not fire him and whatever? Very excited after the end of that game. They made the announcement, the England game yesterday. Yep. I was kind of surprised because, like, we were reading it was going to be 3 o'clock. Then I get they waited till the end of the game because they want the reaction.
Yeah.
But, yeah, I mean, that's got to be the best day on U.S. men's national team Twitter since we got out of the group stage.
Yeah, I mean, I saw people tweeting that this is the most American they've felt since we killed bin Laden. So it was all good vibes on Twitter. My original thoughts were, honestly, don't underestimate the power that the media and social media and Twitter and those and the American Outlaws putting out a statement. Like, I think
it was multiple fan groups put out a statement.
Yeah, I think, honestly, 10, 12 years ago when everyone can't have an opinion and you can't get your word out there, I think Berhalter might stay just due to the comfortability of him and his relationship with the Federation. But the amount of pressure that was put on, I give Lawless credit, I give Dempsey credit, going on Fox Soccer, national TV, saying you want him out. The biggest fan
It's
groups.
really the first time we've seen on national TV that an actual outrage over the U.S. men's national team, because I think lot of these
outside of the rant that
Taylor Twellman
went on. Yeah.
I think that these networks have been very worried for a long time, because the U.S. men's national team can be like, okay, we'll take our team off your network. And I think it just got to the point where, number one, I think Fox has a long enough deal now that they're not too worried.
Are they locked into the World Cup?
Yeah.
So.
And number two, I just think it gotten to the point where, number one, you needed to put pressure on Matt Crocker. I don't care that he made a great U.S. women's national team hire, and everyone's like giving him credit. Like, he went out and got Emma Hayes. Like, that was a big statement. You know he can make a good decision. This is a lot more pressure. Like, that's just a fact. There's a lot more pressure over this decision. Because, first of all, the U.S. women's national team is the best team in the world.
And has been good. And
Correct.
has been successful.
Yes, obviously, the stakes are high because when they lose, it's a big deal. But the stakes are arguably higher for the men's national team, even though we never win, just because this is seen as a golden generation. Look at 100%. Belgium. Like, that was seen as a golden generation. And every manager that went there and blew it is still ridiculed for it, and the Federation is still ridiculed for it. Even the players are ridiculed for it. Like, this is a big opportunity. Obviously, we're hosting the World Cup. What happened was unacceptable. The pressure needed to be put on him. Thanks to a lot of creators and announcers. We're small, but we also
everyone
put it together.
It was an avalanche of hate towards him. Big, small. It was all the talk around a summer that was supposed to be a potential liftoff for American soccer, hosting the Copa America and then hosting the World Cup, and it was the complete opposite. And I think, the power of everyone saying they want him out was obviously too much. The voices were heard loud and clear, and I think that was a huge result of the firing. So my next question to you is, we both agree that it was the right decision.
Yes.
Of course, we both wanted him out. My question to you is, does this let the players off a little bit easy?
No.
Okay.
Because whoever the new manager that comes in is, they are not going to look at the past. Like, Tim Weah, it's a clean slate and not a clean slate.
Yeah.
Like, just because he was the main right winger for this team does not mean that he's going to step in and be automatic day one right wing starter for the U.S. men's national team. The manager, first of all, could move different formation. He can like a different type of player. He can look for, players who are more defensively oriented. Like, any single player in this team, even Christian Pulisic, no longer has an automatic starting spot. Every single player is now going to have to earn their position in this team.
No, I completely agree with that, but that's not really the question. Like, do the players... Berhalter is problem number one. That's non-negotiable. Sure. We completely agree with that. I'm asking, are the players let off easy? Do they deserve more blame? They're getting essentially zero blame outside of Weah and us roasting Carter Vickers, none of them are really getting any blame. Like, we talked about how poor Weston McKennie was. There's no talk about the players, and it's all about Berhalter, as it should be, because that resulted, as we talked about, as him being fired. So now I'm asking that he's fired, are they being let off a little easy?
Here's the thing. Yes, they're being let off a little easy, but what are we going to get from giving them a lot of shit? That doesn't get us anywhere. What we need to do is look forward.
Yeah, that's
And I think that's been a big issue with this U.S. men's national team for a long time now. It's like, oh, we didn't do good enough here. We didn't do good enough there. It's this person's fault. It's that person's fault. We need a clean slate. We need a new manager who, as Matt Crocker said, we are looking for someone who is a serial winner. We are looking to go out and spend money. Like, he literally said all of these things.
Everything he said was perfect. He didn't narrow down the pool of managers.
No, and that's fine.
Which is fine.
I mean, he has to protect himself because...
he said everything perfect. Wants to develop players, which we need because we have a ton of young talent coming through. Wants to spend money, which you need if you're going to get the top player. And then a serial winner. Everyone likes a serial winner.
100%. And I think, obviously, those things are easy to say.
Yeah.
But it's also huge that he didn't go out and say, we can only pay a manager what we're paying the women's national team manager. We are looking for an American. Like, he did not narrow it down to the things that he knew people would not like. Like, I feel like in prior years, it's been very much, we're trying to grow American soccer. We need an American manager. We need someone from the MLS. Like, those types of things have been said. And now we're moving to a point where you woke up this morning and you have reports that U.S. has already made contact with Jurgen Klopp. Do I think Jurgen Klopp's going to be our next manager? No. But he's making a statement that we are going to go after the biggest names. We are going to talk to the biggest names. We aren't going to make a rush decision. And I think that's part of the reason why they took a couple of weeks to fire Berhalter. I think it's stupid. Look at, like, Paraguay fired the manager the day after.
Yep.
There was another big team who
lost to
Ecuador.
Yep.
Ecuador loses to Argentina in penalties. They fire their manager the next day. They made those statements. I respect the fact that they took a minute, and I think
I don't need it to be. There was no immediate rush. There was a rush within the next few weeks, but I didn't need.
You need a manager in by September. You have 2 months basically to decide who the manager is going to be. He can then spend a month getting his team ready for the friendlies, I think, that are in the middle of October.
Okay.
So basically, you got 2 months now to go out and make a hire. Yeah. I think that automatically rules out anyone who's currently in a job, but we'll get to that when we start talking about managers. But I like everything Matt Crocker said. I obviously am thrilled by the firing, and I'm excited to discuss now what I think most people want to know, who's next.
Yeah. Before we get to the replacements, just really quickly, I think inherently for everyone in the world, we're naturally selfish. We're made to be selfish, look out for our best interests. And it's almost like, what's in it for me? And I think the response from the world and U.S. soccer showed him that it's like, okay, what's in it for me to take this risk and make this hire? It's like, I could potentially be one of the reasons that changed, like, American soccer forever, which I think is almost really, really cool, because if there wasn't that response and there wasn't that much attention around the U.S. men's national team and the tournament, it's like, all right, if I make this risky fire and then I don't bring in the right person, it's like, it was pretty much a lose-lose the entire time. But the fact that he has the opportunity to change American soccer for the good for potentially ever, I think is a very exciting thing for him. And him putting no limitations on it shows that he knows that he has the potential to do something obviously massive. So I think
I will say on top of that, I do wonder if we were not hosting the 2026 World Cup if Berhalter gets fired. I think it's not as big of a deal. Like, we're going to go to a World Cup again. The goal is to get out of the group. The goal is to get out of the group. If we do, it's a success. If we don't, it's not. And I also
hosting
think
it is a completely different story.
I think the U.S. Soccer Federation got very concerned that we won't have enough of our own fans.
I was about to say,
I genuinely
they're
think
scared of that. 100%.
That would be so embarrassing. We host a World Cup.
There could have been real protests about not showing up to the game if it was still Berhalter.
There could have been, like, do you remember like the Kroenke out protest during COVID, and then Man United did that for a while.
That was very, very real. They knew that we're hosting it. We need to put on a good showing.
There needs to be excitement.
Revenue-wise, everything surrounding it. Like, there's, like, so much revenue opportunities in terms of merchandise, tours that the U.S. can go on to build hype around it, like PR, everything. So, yeah, I think that's a good point. But I think we started Klopp. That's the name that's
the dream name.
It's being thrown. Okay, first off, I would like to say, you called me absolutely insane for saying Pep. And I know it's different because Klopp...
Pep is not going to be the manager because he is not going to be... You're
I
not
understand,
hiring a manager in June of 2025.
You're calling me crazy because it was like, the U.S. could never dream of getting a manager to that stature. The fact that we're going for Klopp shows, obviously we're not going for Pep because he's still the Man City manager, but we're going for the next best thing.
I think it's one of those things where you say you went out and reached out to Klopp so you can say you went out.
I don't know. Why is that the case?
I just don't see this being the next step in his managerial career.
Germany is not, Nagelsmann is the manager for Germany.
I think he'll be fine to just take a year off. That's the thing.
And then do what? And then go back to club?
Either way, the manager the U.S. Soccer Federation is going to hire needs to be the manager that's going to take us to the World Cup. They cannot wait a year to hire Klopp or Pep.
No, he's not going to wait a year to hire Klopp.
But I'm saying you hire Klopp today, he basically got 1 month off from managing.
Yeah, but international football is very, very different. It's not nearly as
It's very
as
different, except for the fact that if you're coming in to a new setup, he has to do tons of scouting and research and find the players that he wants. It's a different story. These are also not players he's familiar with.
Okay, in club, you have to play for 10 months. They're already back at preseason. You have to be involved in the transfers in and out. You have to be involved in what academy players you're including in. It is so much harder of a job. There is no doubt about that.
I agree, but there's also an element to it. Like, how often do you see international managers going all around Europe, going to see different players play and all?
How difficult is it to fly first class around the world watching soccer games? In all seriousness.
I'm just saying, if the reason he left Liverpool is he's tired and wants a break, I don't know that this job is the answer.
I think it's actually the perfect happy medium. Because you see...
Listen, I want him. He's my number one.
Retirement. You see it with LeBron. He doesn't want to retire. Like, these guys who have that competitive spirit,
I agree.
As much as they think they want to retire, as soon as they're out of it, they want to be right back into it. And I think this is the perfect balance. What would you put our chances of Klopp being our manager at? Out of 10?
3 or 4?
I kind of love that. I was expecting you to say 1 or 2.
No. I think there's a lot of other names that are 1 or 2. Like Pep is 1 or less.
Sure. I didn't even have Pep.
I don't have Pep written down either. But I'm seeing all the graphics everyone's making. They're putting Pep on it.
Are they? Okay. I haven't even seen Pep. But like
they're putting Tuchel on it. Like Tuchel's a 1 out of 10. There's no way Thomas Tuchel's our next manager.
Really? I have him on my list. Just to speak about him.
No, I'm down to speak about him.
All right, let's finish Klopp first.
Okay.
So you bring in Klopp. What is your let's say with a 5 out of 10 manager, like a no-name creative manager who's just a regular run-of-the-mill manager, your expectations for 2026 World Cup with that manager versus with Klopp?
The expectation with Klopp would be to win a knockout round match. I think
That's it?
Yeah.
That's how far he takes us?
I mean, right now, that's it. If in a year we've watched all these friendlies and we look like a different fucking team, sure. Yeah. But right now, we just got grouped by Panama and Bolivia.
Yeah.
And we haven't won a World Cup knockout game
I literally have no idea.
1990. The last time we hosted in 1994. Is that right?
I have no idea.
I think that's the last time we won a knockout game.
Yeah. No, I mean.
So yeah.
I was just curious. Like, people are saying like he would once again, a manager can only do so much with the talent. But like, I'd love to see him and Pulisic back together. Like.
Dude, I'm all in. Like I have a little game at the end of this, and my dream is Jurgen Klopp. I think not only obviously the mentality and the serial winning and the biggest name out there, but I think tactically with this team he can take us further than anybody. He's gonna put out the most athletic midfield he can. He's gonna press the shit out of every single loose ball. He's gonna win every second ball in midfield and hopefully create absolute pandemonium that scores goals.
Yeah.
He's gonna create ruckus atmospheres. He's gonna hype up the crowd. I think you're gonna get people who are not interested in soccer to love this team if Jurgen Klopp's the manager, because that's the kind of aura that he brings to a team. Obviously, I think we have some issues at center back if he's going to be our manager. I don't think Tim Ream can play in a Klopp system that's going to play a high line and press the shit out of everybody. But nonetheless, and also Matt Turner, but nonetheless,
there's definitely some issues.
There's some issues, but I think obviously Klopp's the best manager out there. Other than the fact that he's the best manager out there, I think tactically he's also the best manager for this team. I think
an international side, 100%.
100%.
Yeah, I think what's important, and we touched on this in Berhalter's firing, I think the media can be just as important in the hiring. If the media and everyone's pushing this as a really sought after job, like if it's like Klopp and then Cherundolo and then the Columbus manager, like to him, it's like, why the fuck am I involved in this? If we're consistently throwing out names like Klopp, Pioli, Henry, Pochettino, like that creates, whether or not they fall into belief in it, it's like talking it into talking it into existence.
No, for sure.
If we surround him with names that are respected, I think it becomes a
bigger job.
Like we can make it as 100%. Big of a job as you want to, in theory.
The only thing I'll say is I'm a little worried about what happened with Brazil with Ancelotti, where it's like, oh, Ancelotti's gonna be the next Brazil manager. They get all the way down the road, and then Ancelotti's not the next Brazil manager. They hire some shit manager who can't get anything out of one of the best teams on paper in the world.
Honestly.
And so I just don't want to put all our eggs in a basket when I'm not sure it's really
I'd
realistic.
honestly rather because once again, if we get Klopp, there's part of you that is like, there's a 2% chance we can go on a dream run to a World Cup final with Klopp at the helm. There's a chance you can talk
higher chance than with anybody else out there, probably.
Right.
Yeah, no,
and
100%.
So I'd rather put all my eggs in that basket rather than like going for a bunch of 6 or 7 out of 10s, and it's like, it's great, it's better than Berhalter, but our expectations are really still the same.
Let me ask you this about Klopp, and I don't know the answer what I think yet. It just came to me. Are you worried you get a Klopp who's like, okay, I'll come and take us to the 2026 World Cup and then I'm done?
Yeah,
or
100%.
Would you rather bring someone in who can genuinely be our manager for 20 years, change the culture in the United States, change the way that
bringing in Klopp changes the culture
I agree.
right away.
I agree.
I think one, he changes
the question.
Yeah, one, he changes the culture right away, and two, once again, if we weren't hosting, I would say probably bring in someone for the next 15 years.
Right.
The fact that we're hosting, fuck it, let's go for it. Let's try and make a semifinal somehow, like a Morocco, like a Croatia. Not that we're to that level.
No,
but if you bring in Klopp, our players continue to progress. You bring in a couple more young players who develop, and all of a sudden we have like a very competitive side with Klopp at the helm. Like, you can really talk to yourself into believing that we're going to make a quarterfinal or semifinal. So, 100%. Klopp, I'd throw all my eggs in the basket, and if we miss on that and no one's available and we come back with BJ Callahan, because that's...
Well, BJ Callahan already is a new manager.
No, I know he is. But, like, you're telling me he wouldn't drop... Who did he take over in the MLS? Nashville? Like, you're telling me he wouldn't drop Nashville to come be the USMNT national team coach for the World Cup? Like,
for sure.
That's what I'm saying.
I mean, he won't do that, but yeah.
Worst case, like, we fall into him and the goal is to get out of the group again. Like, I'd rather...
All right, let's get on to the next manager. Yeah. We should probably just talk about Cherundolo next because he's the name that's mostly
not interested literally in the slightest.
But... You
can tell me Berhalter was still the manager versus Cherundolo, and I wouldn't care.
I mean, if you look at the odds, I bet he is the favorite.
No,
to be
he
the
definitely
manager.
is. He's the one who's it's like Klopp and then like realistic Cherundolo, and it's like, once again, if we're going for Klopp, we have to be realists, yes, but there's also so many high-level international managers that are more realistic than Klopp. I don't think we need to go Klopp Cherundolo.
I agree. There's really not an MLS name that I'm interested in.
If there's
at
someone
all.
who has never
Wilfred
managed,
Nancy is the only MLS name that's even somewhat interesting, and even so,
it's at the bottom of my list. He's on the list, but it's at the bottom. I don't want anyone who their only managerial experience has been in the MLS.
I agree.
Hate it or love it.
That's exactly what the issue with Berhalter was.
Yeah, that's the reality of the MLS. It's just not good enough. And if you've only managed in that, regardless of...
Also, you're not going to gain the respect of these players all playing in Europe.
100%.
This isn't the U.S. men's national team of 12 years ago where the entire team were MLS players.
By the way, that's probably the biggest thing, is bringing someone in who, like we've talked about, scares these players.
100%.
If you bring in an MLS manager... They couldn't be... Weston McKennie's going to come into camp overweight again. Like, nothing's going to change.
100%.
So who's your ideal number 2?
Patrick Vieira. Which I've said a bunch before. I think he doesn't quite tick all the boxes because he's not a serial winner as a manager. He's a serial winner as a player, but he has some of the most widespread experience amongst realistic names, in my opinion. He has expressed interest in the job. He will earn the respect of these players.
Without a doubt.
And he knows what it takes to win a World Cup. He knows what it takes to win, genuinely speaking. Obviously, he coached at NYCFC. He coached Joe Scally. He coached at Crystal Palace, brought in Chris Richards. He coached at Manchester City's academy. He's developed young players, some of the best young talents in the world. He has coached in France. Like, he ticks almost every box. He is realistic. He is probably within the budget. I don't know that Jurgen Klopp is within the budget. Let's just call it what it is.
The article I read said that we can do some sort of Messi, Apple TV, Adidas style deal. Like, it's
there's ways to finagle
of different pieces of revenue to where if Klopp wants to come in, the amount of revenue that would be brought in when bringing in Klopp and the amount of excitement that would be brought in, we can find a way to get him his money.
100%. I think Patrick Vieira to me is an actual name that like isn't, Pochettino, Tuchel, and those guys who like we'll talk about who are available, but is available and has expressed interest and is a better manager than Thierry Henry. Favorite athlete of all time, but he's not a good manager, and that's okay. I think Patrick Vieira has shown spurts at every place he's been where he's a very good manager. He has not done it consistently over a long period of time, but obviously international football is a different thing.
Tournament football is different.
And so, that's the name for me. I've been saying it for weeks now that I think if you told me in a week that he's the manager, I'd both be excited and I would believe you. Whereas I don't know if there's another name out there that I feel that way about.
So this is my second favorite name. I don't realistically wise, I don't know the answer, but just what he did in a knockout format and just mentality wise and doing more with less, Terzic. He's out of his job at Dortmund. I haven't seen him linked at all. That's interesting. Anyone. He does not have a new job. No.
Interesting.
And it's like, you have a Dortmund side who, obviously, Dortmund quality versus U.S. men's national team quality is different, but Dortmund quality versus the other people they were playing in the Champions League would be a similar comparison to the U.S. versus who we're going to have to play in the World Cup. And he's young. He would be respected. He can give you that energy.
Why did he resign? Was there?
I don't know, because I thought I read that he was like a boyhood Dortmund fan, and like this was essentially the dream.
That's what I'm pretty sure.
I think maybe he said, like, I may be making this up, but he might have said, like, I took him as far as I possibly could. Like, no shit, you got to a Champions League final. But like that, I was reading everyone who's essentially available, just high-level managers who are just available, whether or not they're interested in an international job at all. But that like stuck out to me as like a really, really interesting one.
That is a really interesting name, and one I hadn't thought about. You just reminded me of something I wanted to say before we even had this conversation is I worry about talking about names of managers who are good club coaches, haven't quite gotten over the last step of being an elite club coach, and then come take this job. It's very high risk. It's high reward, but you come take this job and you get grouped at home in the World Cup, and I think your managerial career might be over.
Like,
so
like
a Terzic is on like a nice ascension right now. To take the risk and the leap of coming to manage this team who the expectations are much higher than they should be because we're the United States, like just on paper.
Yeah. And hosting.
Right, and hosting, like, that's why I worry about, like, someone like him. Like, even, like, I don't think Pochettino's realistic because he's another one who's, like,
that leads me to Pochettino.
He really has never taken that big step.
If he doesn't do well at his next spot, he could be done.
That's what I'm saying. Like, even Tuchel to me is more realistic than Pochettino. I don't actually think that, but in terms of this conversation, like, Tuchel's won a Champions League. Like, he's not going to not have availability at another job. Pochettino is, like, just got the short end of the stick at Chelsea. Yeah. He took Tottenham as far as Tottenham will ever go. By the way, he didn't do great at PSG.
Pochettino finished the season extremely well for Chelsea.
I mean, we don't need to talk about that. It's insane that he got sacked. But yeah,
there's just so many exciting names. Like Tuchel is a Champions League knockout format tactical
Tuchel would be amazing.
Class.
I haven't seen a word about him being a realistic person, but I agree Tuchel would be incredible.
By the way, in my research, all I found is like, it's insane how many quality managers are out of a job currently.
Well, we're in the summer where a lot got like moved.
Of course, but none of these guys are getting a job this year.
Probably not.
Like, that seems insane. That
there's now a bunch of national team jobs that are open.
Right,
well.
But like it seems insane that the list in front of me are 10 plus managers who have all won things and done things at huge clubs and are not going to have a job.
Yeah,
and it's like, why not relax for? It's not fully relaxing, but it's not a club level job. Why not take over a national team? The U.S. is obviously a fun place to live for Europeans and foreigners. You come in, you take over a team who's hosting a World Cup. If it goes well, great, you leave. And if it doesn't go well, it's like people are probably realists. You were playing with the U.S. men's national team. You could probably still get a job.
I think
it goes both ways.
You have to be really established for it to not hurt your legacy, in my opinion. Whereas like Terzic, I think Terzic it would be way too risky. Like, if I'm him, I'm not taking this job.
Old. That's a risky one for him. But that was a name that I saw that just stuck out to me. Like, wow, that could be serious. Tuchel, you think no chance?
I think you have a better chance at Klopp than Tuchel.
Interesting. Why do you think that?
I think Klopp is far enough along in his career where it's like he could do 2 years of the U.S. men's national team, never coach again if he doesn't want to, coach again wherever he wants.
Tuchel's kind of.
I don't know if Tuchel's that far. Like, Tuchel's not the Klopp level.
What's Tuchel's next step?
Like PSG type of job.
Okay.
Like something like where it's
Who
like.
Who is the PSG manager?
Luis Enrique.
Yeah. Okay.
All right. Another name that's being thrown out a lot that I'm not interested in, but seeing a lot of links. David Wagner, who was the Huddersfield Town coach. He was Klopp's number 2 at Dortmund for a while.
Is he the really handsome one?
I don't think he's really very handsome. I mean, I don't know what you're into. He's American. He's an American-born.
Yeah.
American manager, got Huddersfield promoted to the Premier League, kept them in the Premier League for 2 years, did a lot of great things with them. Since then, hasn't really found a landing spot that has worked. I was at Schalke for a little bit. I'm not interested. I think he plays a non-expansive type of football. He can do a lot with very little. I don't think this squad does a whole lot for him. I don't think he's an established enough name. Like, to me, he's the kind of classic, like, U.S. is like, oh, this guy's managing the Premier League, we'll hire him.
Right.
And it'll look kind of good because people will be like, oh, he's American. He just checks a lot of boxes in the ways that I'm not interested in. Definitely not a serial winner, per se.
Yeah.
Has no history of being a serial winner. But I think he's going to end up being on the short list when we come down to, like, who are the final names, in a few weeks. And I'm worried about that.
Yeah, I don't really know much about him because I think I was picturing the wrong person. But if you're not a serial, like, if you haven't won anything just because you've managed at Huddersfield Town, like, is that really moving me? Oh, okay, yeah, I was thinking of the wrong person, but that guy definitely rings a bell. That kind of, what's his name?
David Wagner.
Yeah, that kind of leads me. Do you know Matazaro?
That's who I like him.
Like, he's U.S. born.
New Jersey boy.
Yeah.
Went to Columbia.
And now is
One
managing in the Bundesliga. Like that, I had no clue who that was, transparently. And then when I was reading through the options, I was like, realistically, that sounds like
he was Nagelsmann assistant at Hoffenheim.
Really?
They came in 3rd place when he was the assistant. Their best ever finish.
Yeah.
He's now been great in the Bundesliga.
Yeah.
With first he was with Stuttgart, right? Yeah, Stuttgart got them promoted when there was the second time they'd ever been in the 2nd division in the Bundesliga. And yeah, I mean, he's been really, really good as a manager. He's American. Like, to me, he more checks, like, he's David Wagner, but actually with some respect.
That's why I thought that made a ton of sense going to him next. I don't know his style. So the thing with...
He scored... I think it was like 65 goals or 62 goals with Stuttgart in the 2nd division, which was like the second most. And then last year, they scored the 6th most or 7th most goals in the Bundesliga. Like, a very attractive style of football, expansive. I mean, the Bundesliga is a little bit odd.
What we want, per se? I don't want to just sit in banks, but, like, there's a reason Southgate consistently gets England performances. And I know we don't have the talent of England. And we've seen Spain, you can do it on the other side, but we don't have Spain's talent. So it's like, do you want someone who plays extremely expensive football? How far is the U.S. going playing extremely expensive football?
How far is the U.S. going sitting in low blocks? We don't have
Not
low blocks.
But I'm just saying a little bit of a balance. That's all.
I think obviously you'll need a balance, and I think any manager that comes in, but I'd rather a manager come in who actually knows how to get something out of a team.
Yeah.
Unless you're Jose Mourinho, I don't need a guy to just come in and sit and create nothing.
When we only play...
Also, our best players are creative players. Yeah. So that's kind of the only option that we have.
Yeah.
Is hopefully we go out and score 2-3 goals, and if we leak a goal or two, it is what it is. Like,
yeah, the reason I asked about his play style, because when I was thinking about Pochettino, he's the guy who, like, he gets everyone into training camp early. He runs them into the ground.
No, I love
so
Pochettino.
That he can. No, what I'm saying is I don't know if Pochettino fits, similar to what you were saying about Pep, about, like, these guys need maybe an entire season and an entire offseason with their players. Like, I don't know if, like, Pochettino, he makes sure, like, you're in tip-top shape. Like, he won't have that control when these players come into camp. Like, it's like, you're not doing wind sprints. You're trying to figure out tactically who fits your system
100%.
best. So I don't know if Pochettino makes the most sense, but a next guy that I thought was...
Yeah, I've got 2 more interesting names on my list.
Joachim Löw.
I did not have him on my list.
So, like, I saw him on a list, and I was like, I don't really know how realistic or attractive maybe that is to me, but, like, when you
that's a huge name. I would love
you
it.
have
I
a
just
winner,
think there's no
it's
way.
like... And also, there's something to be said about someone who has international
100%.
experience.
I think that's somewhat important, is hiring someone with international experience. I mean, obviously, it's not the most important, but I think to me, that's a more important box than just hiring somebody like David Wagner, who's managed in Europe.
Right.
Like, I'd rather have someone with international experience. Joachim Löw would be incredible, like, to me, second to Klopp in terms of hiring. I mean, we're talking about a guy who won a World Cup.
I know, yeah.
He has cycled through tons of different, like, that Germany team. It was a lot of the same players, but he was able to get a lot out of, like, Christoph Kramer, like Sami Khedira, like, players who were very good, but, like, never world class. And they were mainstays in teams that were winning at World Cups, winning in European championships. obviously highly respected. You're going to fear the shit out of him if he's your manager.
100%.
Like, he comes in, first of all, this generation of U.S. players, they're probably one of their first World Cups that they remember. Is 100%. Him managing Germany and winning.
I think Vieira is such a, like, as trolling and stupid as this is going to sound, like, these kids, our players are literally our age, like, grew up playing FIFA. Vieira has been a legend on 100%. FIFA forever. Like, that's just someone you know the name and immediately demands respect.
100%. I think those types of names are much more interesting to me than David Wagner or Cherundolo or Wilfred Nancy, who are the big names that are really, I'm seeing every single person is like, these are the names that are realistic. And I just, that'll be such a disappointment.
Once again, it's like, we make the offering as realistic and appealing as we want to be, to a degree. Yes, it is still the U.S. men's national team, who our expectations right now are to win one knockout game, which doesn't align with some of the names we're talking about, but we can make it revenue-wise and reality-wise as attractive as we want to.
100%. Another name I have on the list is a great from the last World Cup, excuse my French, Hervé Renard, who was the Saudi Arabia coach. Yeah. He's currently the France women's head coach. Yeah. I think it's highly unlikely he leaves that position.
No, what I read is said he's already made it clear he wants to manage the men's 2026 World Cup, is what I read.
Really?
Like, he's made that statement like that is a fact.
Isn't the women's World Cup next summer?
That I don't know.
So, like, to me, I just don't see it happening. Like, I know Ivory Coast asked the French women's team if Renard could manage them during AFCON, and they said no.
Interesting.
So, okay. I think it's not realistic in terms of because he has a job, but otherwise, I would think he would be one of the top names. International footy, had success with not a great team at the World Cup. They beat Argentina. Like,
100%.
He is the perfect coach. He has tons of experience with tons of different types of teams. Like, he can kind of come in and make the most out of anything. And a big part of that Saudi Arabia team was a mentality thing. They fought to the death. They were grinders, whatever. Like, that to me is exactly what you want out of a manager. And he's an interesting name to me. Of the managers currently who have a job, I think he's the most realistic name.
Okay. Yeah, it'll be interesting to see. I didn't know. I mean, I did, but didn't put it together that the Women's World Cup is right before. So, like, if we're getting someone who only has a year, I'd rather Pep than...
The only thing I will say is, obviously. The only thing I will say is, if my recollection is right, he only had, like, 9 months with Saudi Arabia before that World Cup and, like, came in and, like, changed the whole thing.
Jesse Marsch took Canada to a semifinal. So,
I mean, we're not even talking about Jesse Marsch because I think he is pissed off at the U.S. men's national team, and after the success with Canada, he's not leaving that position.
No, probably not.
But obviously...
I think it was a perfect fuck you from him.
100%,
exactly
which is such a bummer because he was the ideal candidate for this job.
Yeah. And he's someone who we could have built with for the next 15 years.
100%. I have
your last name.
Marcelo Gallardo, the one who won 14 titles with River Plate.
Oh, the Argentinian guy?
Yeah, he was just managing in Saudi Arabia, just got fired a couple weeks ago. Yeah, I don't know. I don't know the difference between all those teams, to be honest. I just think he's an interesting name because he is a serial winner.
Yeah.
Huge success in Argentina. To me, yes, it's not ideal for the World Cup. He probably would have been a better manager for the Copa America, but knowing how to win on this side of the world is a different beast than knowing how to win in the Eastern Hemisphere. Like, we play a very less attractive, more belief-style football. Maybe that's what this team needs.
Do you have... I don't know the answer to this, and it is my question. I don't know if he speaks English. What's your importance on our manager being able to speak English?
As long as he can speak enough English, that's fine.
Okay. Yeah, I just... For someone who's managed at River Plate and...
If Hervé Renard can take the Saudi Arabian team and get them out of the group stage of the World Cup, I don't think that we need to worry so much about speaking English.
Maybe just the translator gets it done.
Or what do you mean? Like, you think every single player that Pep Guardiola signs can speak the same language that he can speak?
I'm pretty sure the only person on Man City that doesn't speak English is Julian Alvarez, and he doesn't start for a reason.
Well, Pep also speaks Spanish.
No, he speaks English to the team.
No, but I'm saying he can also communicate with Alvarez.
Yes, of course. Yes. No, I'm just saying people.
How about Gvardiol speaks English?
Yeah,
you've heard him talk.
We've talked personally.
Oh, okay.
Yes,
I didn't know you guys were on that basis.
Me and Yosko. The last two names that I had on my list that we hadn't touched on, so we can just quickly touch on them. Zidane is out of a job.
Okay.
Any thoughts on that?
Sounds great.
Don't have any strong thoughts on it.
I mean, would be great. Big name, serial winner, success in knockout format,
respected.
won a World Cup, respected. It's the unrealistic version of Patrick Vieira.
My question is, we've named a list of 12 to 13 guys.
And we're not even talking about all the American guys.
Not even that. 12 to 13 guys. At some point, jobs are going to fill up and they're just going to want to manage. Like, how many open spots are there for?
But some of the guys we're talking about are not like actively looking for jobs. Like, even Klopp is not actively looking for a job. Zidane is not actively looking for a job.
How many more attractive jobs than the U.S. men's national team are going to open up for a list of 13 guys?
Yeah. Like, not many. I mean,
we may just fall into a world-class manager.
You also have to remember, if England don't win, Southgate says he's leaving. So that's a pretty attractive job.
Sure. You lose one of 13.
But that's the most attractive job.
Without a shred of doubt.
And Ecuador is a more attractive job.
Questionable. There's something to be said about living
lower expectations, better team.
Okay, but there's something to be said. You're telling me we can't pay more than the Ecuador?
Sure, we can.
Right, and living in the United
Marcelo
States.
Gallardo, I think Ecuador is more attractive.
Sure.
Like those types of names.
But Europeans, and the last name I had was Pioli, who got the best out of Pulisic, got fired by Milan. What's his next job?
Those Italian managers seem to always stay in Italy. Like, they never leave.
But once again,
Gattuso and Inzaghi.
Henry, Vieira, Zidane, Tuchel.
Yeah, we didn't even talk about Henry. I mean, Henry's interesting to me.
It depends on how he needs this summer.
He needs to at least silver medal with this French team. They are by far the best team on paper.
Are they? Okay.
I'm not. Dude, look at their U23 team. You're like, is this a joke?
It's crazy that they used all their overage players on the attackers. I feel like that's kind of
a lot of guys turned them down.
True. Okay.
I mean, Lacazette is their captain.
And Mateta is in there.
Yeah.
Is Olise in there?
No. Did Company let him go? I don't think Company let him go.
Yeah, the fact that we can have this conversation from just look back 2 weeks ago to us being depressed about the future of U.S. soccer, and now we're talking about Klopp, Zidane, and Vieira. Like, it's just extremely exciting.
100%. All right, last thing, a little game just to kind of round out the who's next conversation. Yeah. I'm going to give you a couple of categories, and I want you to just give me one or two names, but hopefully just one name.
A couple categories, okay.
Dream U.S. men's national team manager.
Klopp.
That's also mine. Favorite realistic choice for U.S. men's national team manager.
I don't know much about him, but I think Matarazzo.
Okay.
How do you pronounce his name?
Matarazzo.
Yeah, I think he's... I didn't know anything about
Jersey,
him.
Matarazzo.
Jersey born and success in the Bundesliga, like that seems like a good recipe for me.
100%. My favorite realistic choice is Patrick Vieira, as I've said 100 times. If it has to be an MLS coach or someone who's only managed in the MLS, so Cherundolo, Nancy.
I think the French guy is the Columbus manager. Yeah, he seems to be the one who, like, Columbus kind of came out of nowhere and is. How important is it taking the MLS by storm? But it's at least better than people who
in his 2 years he came in third and they won.
Yeah, like there's something to be said. I
think
about
that's the.
And he's not American, right?
Yeah, he's French.
He's French, so like at least
I like that he's French.
Yeah, of course. Yeah. At least there's something to be said about growing up in a French style of football and the mentality that comes with that. And then whatever, you're managing an MLS side, but he's having extreme success and French. So I think he's like nothing to do with Cherundolo. I want nothing to do with him.
Could not agree more. Who is someone worth contacting who
is super unrealistic?
Not super unrealistic, but isn't like someone like Klopp, who we've clearly already contacted.
I think I don't know how unrealistic Tuchel is, but I think Tuchel he has seemingly struggled a bit in a club throughout a club season with his teams, but always gets the best out of them in a knockout format. That seems like the go-to. The only drawback is him and Pulisic obviously did not have whether it was a good relationship or he just didn't play him, whatever it was, that did not work out well at Chelsea. So I don't know how many hard feelings there are, and we've seen the manager-player relationship in the U.S. camp going sour already, so we don't probably want to play around with that, but I would say Tuchel.
Yeah, I have Pochettino. I think young players he's great at getting the most out of, seemingly able to kind of come in and get a lot quickly out of his team. Been pretty good in knockout formats, give or take. Good at Tottenham, not so good at PSG.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, I think Pochettino would be incredible. I think it's highly unrealistic, like more unrealistic than Klopp.
What about Tuchel? Pochettino or Tuchel? What's more realistic?
I think Tuchel's more realistic. I think for Pochettino, like it's just a little too risky.
Agreed. If he doesn't perform well, he's out.
Yeah, I think it's too risky.
But is he? Because it was kind of he just got put in a really tough position.
For sure, but it's like not succeeding at PSG enough
with Neymar, Messi, and Mbappe.
That hurts him a little too much.
That hurts a lot.
All right,
but also in a real world, like we're not playing FIFA. Was the team of Neymar, Messi, and Mbappe ever really going to work?
You kind of make it work.
Is that insane to say?
It's a little insane to say.
Like I'm being honest.
Like it doesn't have to win the Champions League, but he didn't make a semifinal.
I'm a touch worried about Real Madrid. We'll get to that later, but
I'm gonna just clip that now for later use.
Yeah, sure.
Okay,
I'm worried about them. I think it could be too much.
Yeah. Okay.
Well, they have the Don, so he'll be able to figure.
If it has to be an American,
who are my American options?
Cherundolo, Wagner, Matarazzo.
Sure, give me Matarazzo.
Yeah, that's my pick. That's
my realistic one. And then I'm sure there's some other MLS managers who are.
There's another one I can't remember who. That's. I will be. Oh, Bob Bradley's also linked to come back. Anyway, yeah, Matarazzo is also mine.
Sorry.
If it has to be American,
is that the last category?
I got one more.
Okay.
Absolute do not want. I have two names for mine. Like names we're talking about that you absolutely don't want.
Absolute do not want. I think the only one that we talked about. I think would be Cherundolo. I just want someone who is going to come in and be feared and change the mentality. And if we bring in an MLS manager, I think it changes absolutely nothing for this team.
Yeah, I have Cherundolo and then David Wagner, who I was talking about earlier. Yep. Who I'm more worried about Wagner than Cherundolo because I think Cherundolo, like, they actually would be insane to hire him, like, with everything that's happened. Like, they're not. That's
Berhalter version 2.
Yeah, like the same thing with Wilfred Nancy almost, where it's like, okay, like he's done okay in the MLS and like. That's why we're hiring him. Right. That makes no sense. To me, Wagner is like, they can kind of be like, well, we got a guy who's done it in the Premier League. And what, like,
but did he do it?
Right. That's what I'm saying. Like, I'm really concerned that's who they'll go with. But yeah, that's the end of that game.
So the last thing that just came across my mind is we see this all the time. Has there been any talk about like one of our quote unquote legends coming in to take over? Like, does Dempsey have any interest?
I mean, if you've heard Dempsey or Donovan on TV,
you don't.
They don't. Really, I mean, Landon Donovan, word for word, said yesterday in the Netherlands-England match, I don't understand why they're bringing on Weghorst for Mullen. That doesn't change anything tactically. So,
what about
he doesn't understand the
Tim
difference
Howard?
between target and people running in behind. I think Tim Howard has
Can goalkeepers be managers? Do they know enough? Honestly,
I mean,
no. Tactically wise, they're not involved.
I think they can be managers. Yeah. I think haven't like Van der Sar been a manager or. Did I make that up? Has Oliver Kahn been a manager? I don't really know.
No, I don't know.
Has Peter Schmeichel been a manager?
What about Louis van Gaal? What's he doing these days?
I don't like him.
He was fire with the Dutch.
Was he?
Van Persie scored a flying header and then ran to him.
Okay.
Actually, we don't want our players running to the manager to give them hugs. We saw that's a negative. All right. So the final thing, I just want to get your rankings. I want you to balance. We've kind of gone around this, but this is obviously more for short form.
While we're talking short form, go follow us on TikTok and Instagram.
Balancing realism, like the chance of it happening, and your want. Give me your ranked top 5 candidates. Balancing.
Well, if I'm balancing realism, let's call realism on a 10 scale and actually who I want on a 10 scale.
Okay.
So, number 1, I'm going to go Patrick Vieira, who on a realism scale is probably like an 8.
Okay.
Who I want on like a 6, that's 14.
Okay.
Jurgen Klopp would be 2, want 10, realism 3, that's 13.
Got it.
Matarazzo probably falls right in the middle there where it's like 6 and 6.
Yeah.
Then I would probably go Renard, who's probably like a 6 and 4 in terms of like realism, is probably like a 4. And then I would probably go Tuchel, who is like a 9 in want and a 1 in realism.
So you'd in a vacuum were the greatest job ever. You'd rather have Klopp over Tuchel.
1,000. Okay. Klopp is my 100 out of 10. If we can hire Jurgen Klopp, I will get way too excited about this team and talk about winning World Cups.
Yeah, that's going to be fire. Yeah, I agree. Klopp is number 1. I have his realism at a little higher than you. I have it around a 5.
Okay.
I think for what Klopp wants, he's shown that he's interested in America. And with him being tired of a club job, I think this is the perfect balance. So I put it at like a 5 realism and like a 10 want.
Sure.
After I would go, I don't know enough about Vieira. I want to trust you on that he's the right guy, but managerial-wise, I don't.
I'm a little biased?
You're a little biased, but like everything you've said adds up for me. I'm going to go Matarazzo too, just for realism-wise. I think he's pretty high.
I think, to me, he's like David Wagner, except actually good.
Right.
So like, I think he is really realistic.
Like,
he checks all those boxes.
If you're a New Jersey-born guy, like, and taking over the U.S. seems like a pretty...
He's also an absolute grinder. He U.S.-born, then he went to Columbia, got an Ivy League degree.
Yeah.
He then played 10 years in like the German lower leagues, like second, third, and fourth divisions, just trying to be a professional soccer player.
That's insane. All right, yeah.
Like, he's a grinder.
Then I would go Tuchel 3. Realism-wise is pretty low, but 1 is right up there with Klopp. He's a 9.5 if Klopp's a 10. Surprisingly, I don't want Poch. I don't think he fits an international side. I think he drills in a level of fitness and a little bit of interesting tactically that I think he would need more time than an international camp provides. Who's next? I'm going to go Joachim Low at 4.
I forgot about Joachim Löw. I think that would be
someone
like
who's won. Like, it just is.
It also feels very on par with U.S. men's national team, like signing somebody that really, like, no one. I don't remember, but I don't remember everyone being like, "Oh, Gregg Berhalter should be the next manager," and then they hired
someone
him
out of nowhere,
kind of completely out of nowhere, and like everyone's talking about the same names, and hopefully behind the scenes are like, "Come sniff your butt in America, buddy."
Last, I'm gonna go Henry because I think he's kind of realistic. He's like a.
He's just a shit manager. Respectfully,
I know
it's to the greatest Premier League player of all time.
Aura-wise, and like he's on the CBS crew, so he's in that American thing.
In terms of aura, you're not going to get more.
That's what I'm saying.
Like, and then
also
aura.
Respect. Like, I think he'll be able to. He'd be a little bit of a player manager because he's younger, but he obviously is one of the greatest players. So like he'll still demand that respect. So that's
Vieira should just come co-manage. That'd be my wet dream.
Yeah, that I think I wouldn't be able to handle that if they co-managed.
I mean, I just wear an Arsenal jersey for every fucking U.S. game.
Yeah, I'll wear if we win the World Cup, I'll wear an Arsenal jersey the entire fucking way. I don't care. Yeah, clip it.
Clip it. All right.
Last thing I want to say is, looking back now, as much as we got hyped about the Copa America, like...
What a shit tournament.
Unwatchable.
I went to that fucking Argentina game in that life, the semifinal.
It's awful.
I mean, they're not even playing. Like, what am I watching?
VAR is fake.
The fields are horrible.
The field conditions are horrible, which is something we'll need to fix for the World Cup. The field conditions are horrible. And...
Horrible tournament.
It's just an awful tournament, and there's no extra time.
No, going straight to penalties is one of the...
We can't reserve the fields long enough. It costs too much, so we can't do extra time. So looking back now, as excited as we were for the Copa America...
A horrible tournament.
Tim Weah punching someone in the face could be the greatest decision ever.
What a horrible tournament. How about how the Uruguay game ended last night? Did you see that?
Yeah. I mean, Darwin's killing people.
That's my dog.
The one thing America has is like an overly zealous police presence, and we can't even protect the Uruguayan players' families. I mean, I don't want to get into politics, but like that seems a little ridiculous. Tim Weah, you're an American hero. Last thing. If we got out of the group and lost to, who was it, Colombia or Uruguay? Colombia beat Panama, right? If we got out of the group and lost to Colombia, I say 2-1. Is he fired?
Probably not.
So that's what I'm saying.
That's what I was saying at the beginning, like 3 months ago when we did our very first preview show.
It should have been a hate watch from the start.
It was like we either need to be in the semifinal or not get out of the group. Like
because the middle ground was awful.
The middle ground was awful.
All right, Tim Weah, I was really upset with you.
You've always loved Tim Weah.
True, and honestly, just fits my narrative.
Might be your sharpest take ever.
Tim Weah, you saved us. We're talking about Jurgen Klopp at the 2026 World Cup. And like that gives me a little bit of a hard on.
Do we go back to hating Tim Weah if Trundalo's our manager at the 2026 World Cup?
Yes. Okay. It's like just hate myself and not.
We shut down the pod.
I just changed my nationality to English, and I fully am in coming home mode. You must be in shambles that they're in the final.
What do you mean? My pre-tournament tick is going to win it all. I'm going to be rich.
You should actually be happy Saka's hooping.
I mean, I'm not surprised. Everyone else is surprised, which makes no sense to me. He's been the best player for England for 3 years. He's been the best player in the Premier League for 2 years. Nobody is surprised. Anyway, thank you for watching our
This
next
is why
US
I can't even make comments on Arsenal because I said he's balling, and all of a sudden he's been the best player in the Premier League for 2 years.
He has been.
Insane. Yeah, cut it, please.
Thanks for watching. Appreciate all the new subs. If you're new here, make sure to hit that subscribe button. We are doing U.S. men's national team coverage over the next multiple months. We'll be continue to discuss who the next manager is. We will be covering the under-23 team at the Olympics in some pretty good detail. We're going to do a nice preview show on those players with the team, and then we'll be recapping the major games that happen. We're also doing our Euros final preview. Right after this, we're going to record. That'll be up in the next couple of days as well. And then into the summer transfer window, lots of big news. Manchester United making moves already. Tottenham and Arsenal not far behind. Let's see what happens. Big seasons ahead. Thanks for watching.
Peace.